Rubio has an upcoming commitment, so I'm going to trade slots with him so he can ask questions before he has to leave. Senator?
Thank you. I appreciate your indulgence on this. The Foreign Relations Committee has a meeting I need to get to as well, so I appreciate you.
Sure.
I won't use the full time, but the first question is, Mr. Kramer, you may know my home state's not a stranger to severe weather. We had a wetter than average winter that caused Lake Okeechobee's levels to climb, and as a result, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers began discharging billions of gallons of water to the east through the St. Lucie River and to the west as well. And the discharges have had a dramatic and negative consequence on hundreds of businesses that rely on healthy rivers, including, for example, the commercial fishermen. And of course, tourism has also seen a decline in various parts of the state. So I'll continue to work on the Central Everglades Planning Project, which is more of a long-term solution. But in the short term, we should help these businesses that have been harmed to recover, and here's how we can. On the 17th of March of this year, the Secretary of Agriculture issued a disaster declaration for several Florida counties as a result of flooding due to heavy rains. This declaration triggered the eligibility for SBA assistance. It's my understanding that SBA is considering extending eligibility under the same declaration to businesses affected by these discharges from Lake Okeechobee. And of course, that's something I'd strongly encourage the SBA to approve. Can you update me on what the status is and the estimated timing for a decision on that?
Sure. Thank you, Senator, for that question. I am aware of the situation. I am aware that the Secretary of Agriculture has made a declaration, a disaster declaration for that area. I am not aware, though, that for an SBA declaration, in the absence of a presidential declaration, we have to receive an application from the governor for our services and our declaration. The governor has made such a declaration with regard to two different events in late February related to tornadoes that were in Florida. And so we've worked with them on that. And I know that those came to us just last week, and we should have an approval, I expect a decision, in a matter of days on those. I'm not aware that yet, though, that we have received a request for a declaration on the other one, although I can contact our staff and make sure that they use the established lines of communication they have.
So by issuing the declaration, the Secretary of Agriculture for these counties as a result of flooding, this in and of itself does not trigger eligibility for SBA assistance?
I will confirm. My understanding is that when there's a presidential declaration, our services are automatically triggered. Otherwise, there is a separate process by which we make a declaration. Oftentimes, it can happen in concert with the other ones, but that the Secretary of Agriculture declaration would not necessarily trigger our services. But I'll confirm that and make sure that we follow up to...
Well, if there's something missing from the state side, we'd like to know about it so they can address it. Related to the event you talked about, Ms. Zimmerman, my question is with regards to both Escambia and Santa Rosa counties. They were ravaged by storms. Had one tornado hit the town of Century, hit over 100 homes and commercial buildings, caused about $3.9 million in damages. And then the second hit Ferry Pass just a few days later, and it destroyed or severely damaged about 300 homes and buildings, and the total damage about $18 million. So the governors made these requests, and I wrote the president twice in support of two separate disaster declarations. First for an emergency declaration, which was denied, and then subsequently a major disaster declaration, which was also denied. So the Pensacola News Journal has reported that one of the reasons that the state will not receive disaster assistance is because, independently, the storms failed to meet a damage cost threshold for federal assistance. The journal says that FEMA refused, this is a quote, refused to let the state roll the damage amounts from the two tornadoes into one request. However, given that these storms occurred in the same week and were only 30 miles apart, I believe FEMA should be able to roll the damage totals from the area into one request. It's my understanding that this has been done in the past for similar disasters. So what are the guidelines for assessing the cumulative effects from storms in close proximity and time? And I guess, what are the guidelines for that? I know that's happened in the past.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, when storms impact communities, we work with our partners at the National Weather Service to identify whether storms are of the same system or if they're of separate systems. And so we rely on them as another federal agency to tell us if they are one system or not. When we look at disaster damages and the impacts, we look at that first, but we look at the overall impact of those disasters and get the requests from the governors, which we did have a request from the governor for the storm that hit Escambia and Santa Rosa, and they requested for individual assistance. We went out and performed damage assessments alongside the state and local communities and identified a total of 45 homes destroyed and 40 with major damages. So looking at just about 85 homes, major damage or destroyed. So that was of a level that it was felt that the state would be able to handle that.
Okay, well, just in closing, I just want to hopefully be able to work with you on this because this has been a recurring issue in Florida. Florida is victim to multiple storms that occur within a short period of time. In and of themselves, the one storm, the one tornado may not reach the threshold, but when you combine all these events happening in the same geographic area within close proximity of time and space, if you add those up, it gets pretty dramatic, and Florida seems to be repeatedly impacted by this. I hope we can establish guidelines that allow us to meet that threshold, and I'm sure we'll work with your agency to do that, I hope. All right, thank you. Thank you,
Great.
Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Booker.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence and thanks to your example, I'm going to allow Senator Heitkamp to go next.